After all the gatherings during this holiday season, it's common to find yourself under the weather. And even when the parties and the traveling end, you can find yourself getting sick. So we're going on the record to get expert advice for staying healthy during these winter months and preventing the spread of seasonal sickness.
From WPBF 25, this is On the Record with Todd McDermott.
We have been reporting recently on the rise in illnesses, including flu cases, the respiratory virus RSV, and the common cold, of course. So let's go on the record first about influenza. Joining me now, Dr. Leslie Diaz, an infectious disease specialist and chair of the Infection Control Committee at Palm Beach Gardens Medical Center. Doctor, first, thanks for joining us today. A lot of people out there have at least one more big party to go to. But before that, let's talk about the flu and ways to avoid the flu. Obviously, when you talk about influenza, you talk about the flu shot. Is it effective this year? How effective is it? Is it too late to do it?
Well, thank you for having me, and that's a very good question. The best tool that we have to prevent or combat the flu or influenza or any rises in cases is the vaccine. Luckily, we've been very lucky this year that it has been a very effective vaccine against the strain which is the major one is influenza A, H1N1.
And that can vary from year to year, correct? The formulation for the vaccine can vary in effectiveness depending on the particular flu season?
And that's correct. And there's no really magic bullet or equation. That they basically study the outbreaks from the year before. And based on that is where they predict the next one to be for the next year.
So as we stand here now, as we sit here now, how is the flu season developing as far as the spread of the virus?
We have seen an increased cases, load of cases recently, and it usually happens in Florida starting in October, but it really peaks at the end of December, early January for us. As you know, there's a huge amount of influx of northerners that come to Florida to be here for the weather, and we see more parties around the holiday season, and that kind of puts a environment of congregation of people and parties and get-togethers, and that kind of is a perfect milieu to have contagiousness of the flu.
And that really makes Florida unique in that so many people from out of state come here over the holidays, get together, socialize, go out to eat, go out to bars, and we end up being kind of ground zero in some ways for the spread of the flu.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, we peak, like I said, at the end of December, early January, and the rest of the country peaks in February. So yes, we kind of have a very specific niche in the ways that influenza is spread and why in South Florida.
I want to go back to the flu vaccine if I could, because obviously some people choose not to be vaccinated. Who do you recommend should absolutely be vaccinated against the flu?
6 months or older should be vaccinated for the flu. So who are the most at risk? Kids, the young kids, and the elderly, and especially the 65 plus individuals that have comorbid illnesses or chronic medical conditions such as heart disease, COPD, diabetes mellitus. Those are the issues that intensify the severity of the illness if they should acquire influenza.
I know plenty of people who say, I just don't like vaccines and I want to be vaccinated. When you have a patient who has that particular view, what do you tell them as far as the efficacy and the safety of the flu vaccine?
It changes on a year-to-year basis, and if there is a year like this year, which is a very effective vaccine, I take the time to educate the patient of why it is so important to get the flu. We still see a huge mortality with these individuals that are older, that have comorbid illnesses, and you have to take the time to convince them that this is the right thing to do. And I can understand where their reservations lie, but I think taking the time to answer the questions and educating them on a year-to-year basis is the right thing to do.
Has our overall public view of hand hygiene and mask wearing that's linked to the pandemic, has that changed perception for some people as far as protecting themselves from spread of influenza?
I think that is one positive thing I think COVID has given us, and it's to ignite a more conscious effort of individuals to use the tools they can to be able to prevent the contagiousness of influenza, such as frequent hand washing. We kind of got used to that. Wearing masks if you are at risk of developing serious and very severe illness of influenza. And if you're going to get together with more than 8 or 10 people, you kind of want to wear masks and so forth. So that education, I think, was, we obtained it because of the experience we've had with the COVID pandemic.
You know, it's funny, I have a little lady at my house who's 5 now, so she was 2 during the pandemic. She never misses a chance to use that hand sanitizer.
You see?
That's training.
That's very good.
That's because of
Yes.
doctors like you.
Well, thank you.
Dr. Leslie Diaz, thanks so much for joining us this
Thank you
morning.
for having me.
So glad to have you
Been a
here on the
pleasure.
record. Next, we'll take a closer look at RSV and what the impact of the respiratory virus can have on our families.
You're watching On the Record on WPBF 25.
Joining me now to talk about RSV is Dr. Shannon Fox-Oldine, a pediatrician at St. Mary's Medical Center, the owner of Palm Beach Pediatrics. First, let's talk about what RSV is. It doesn't seem to me that, say, 10 years ago, we were talking about RSV the way we do today. Now it's almost as prevalent in what we report as the flu. So let's talk about what it is and who it impacts.
RSV stands for respiratory syncytial virus, and yes, it's been around for a long, long time. So it's just one of those things that I think that it gets overlooked because it really just affects certain age groups. And for us pediatricians, we know it very well because one of the high-risk age groups are those very young children, the infants, newborns, especially, premature babies. So respiratory syncytial virus is a virus. It's a common cold virus. Most kids, probably by the age of 2 or 3, have already been infected with it and had their first bout of illness from it. Which typically is runny nose, cough, congestion, lots of congestion.
But then you have some severe symptoms among some infants and children because of RSV. What are the more severe cases like?
So the more severe cases are specifically something called bronchiolitis. So bronchiolitis is inflammation of this very small airway that's in the lung that in babies is obviously that much smaller, of the bronchioles. And that inflammation can cause the baby to have wheezing, difficulty breathing, difficulty feeding, and they can become very, very sick, need to be hospitalized for further management. So those tend to be high-risk babies, the newborns that are born prematurely, the babies who have some underlying chronic condition, like a heart condition or lung problems. Typically not healthy babies, but it can even happen to healthy babies. So that's the tricky part, is you don't always know. It's very similar to the flu in that age group, that the flu also can be pretty devastating for those yet less than 6 months old.
And what about treatment if they contract RSV?
So RSV is a virus, and that means there's no antibiotic unless there's a secondary infection, which can happen with RSV, where you can get ear infections or pneumonia from RSV and require antibiotics. But typically, the virus itself cannot be treated with an antibiotic. So it's what we call supportive care, just supporting your child with fluids, making sure they don't get dehydrated. Sometimes they need to drink less more frequently because they tend to cough a lot and then throw up, and so that can lead to dehydration. Making sure that you treat fever to keep them comfortable with Tylenol, or if they're over 6 months old, Motrin is appropriate, ibuprofen. Making sure that They're trying to help them keep their airway as clear as possible. So bulb suctioning for the mucus in their nose and keeping them upright to get the mucus to drain down the back of their throat. And
Nothing like watching that bulb do its thing.
yes, it's pretty impressive, right?
It is pretty impressive.
And especially when they have RSV, because with RSV they have so much mucus buildup. So you can get quite a bit out with the bulb syringe.
And let's talk also about people who are older adults. Also a risk group for more severe complications of RSV?
Yes, again, really anybody, thinking along the same lines as influenza, anyone who has underlying medical condition, especially lung and heart conditions, can have, or immunodeficiencies, can have more complications from RSV. And then the older 65, the younger, the older, that always tends to be the age groups that are just more at risk for secondary complications from any of these viruses that we can't otherwise treat to get them to go away quickly.
And doctor, are we in the middle of RSV season here? What are we seeing so far as case numbers go?
So our area is interesting. RSV is very regional and it's seasonal. So seasonally, typically in most of the country, it's, fall and spring, fall, winter, early spring. Here in Southeast Florida, because we're special, it's year long. So January through December, we see RSV. We had a bit of a spike end of October. It kind of settled down again, but we're used to here, 20 years I've been here, we're used to just seeing the cycle up and down and up and down, and always kind of thinking about that in the back of our minds when we have a young, vulnerable child who has these symptoms, to just make sure we're supporting them.
Do we get any benefit at all because those of us here in South Florida get to spend more time outdoors during the winter months? Does that make any difference at all?
We hope, yeah.
We hope, okay.
We can always use that.
That is not convincing. And what about an RSV vaccine for protection that is available, and how effective can it be?
It's very exciting. So this has been, interestingly enough, released at the same time, RSV vaccine for adults. So that is for pregnant women who are 32 to 36 weeks in their pregnancy. And then the elderly also are eligible for one of the vaccines. They're two separate vaccines, 65 and older. So for babies, there is something that is also new, and it is not a vaccine. It is an antibody injection that is a preventative for RSV. So it's essentially antibodies against RSV that we can now give babies that are, as soon as they're born, is when they're eligible to get it. A one-time dose, lasts about 6 months, so it gets them through that, again, vulnerable age group to hopefully keep them, even if they get RSV, it'll be a milder illness. However, probably the best option is for the mother to get the vaccine to then pass her antibodies onto the baby, right? And if that is the case, if the mother has the vaccine, then the baby does not need to get the new preventable injection.
All right. Dr. Fox-Levine, thanks so much for being here today.
You're
really
welcome.
Appreciate it.
My
Next,
pleasure.
we go on the record about how to avoid getting sick if we can. Welcome back. Joining me now is Dr. Casey Cohen, a general oncology surgeon who's on staff at Good Samaritan, Palm Beach Gardens Medical Centers. Thanks so much for being here. We're moving on now from the disease of the moment to trying to get away from disease, keep it away from us, general health. And I want to know first, whether it's the common cold, whether it's the flu, what are the building blocks? What are the first things you tell a patient who says, I just don't want any of this? What do you tell them they need to do?
Well, I think it's really important to increase your own immunity. So the way we do that is appropriate diet, exercise, fresh air, sunshine, and reducing your stress level. I think it's hard, but you always say to reduce your stress, because that's a big topic. But if you do those other things, it all contributes to lowering the stress level, which actually increases your immunity.
I want to talk more about stress levels in a moment, but I do, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to go to your personal story for a minute, because you have actually beaten skin cancer twice.
Yes, yes.
how did you do that? And how does that fit into your philosophy in dealing with patients?
Sure. So when I was doing my surgical training, I was actually diagnosed with my first melanoma, and my director of residency, saw it, took it off immediately, and that really got me interested. I was very lucky the first time that I didn't have to do any lymph node sampling. The second time, I was diagnosed 2 years later with my second melanoma, which was more involved, and then that really just energized me. I had done a lot of things in my youth, a lot of blistering sunburns, not a great diet, a lot of tanning beds, and none of those were great things. So that really energized me to take better care of myself to prevent cancers going forward in the future.
Why don't we talk about some of the changes you made in your own life, in best practices and maybe in the way, your health regimen, to make sure you could beat this cancer and avoid it in the future?
Sure, so I think diet was big for me. A lot of fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, and meats. A lot of people don't realize that when you grill meat, there's a lot of carcinogens in that. And so if you fry it or you grill it, you have to check for the heat. And so if you marinate your meat, so I marinate everything now. I try to avoid processed foods or things with a lot of preservatives. That's the best way in terms of diet. And then exercise too. I used to burn it with lots of cardio, but now, light exercises with weights to increase, bone density and just building muscle mass to help with metabolism. So those are some of the basic things with diet and exercise. And then, believe it or not, sleep. Really trying to get good sleep hygiene, trying to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep.
Let me go back and talk first a little bit more about the diet. And that is it's not necessarily a drastic change for people to live a healthier lifestyle as far as what they eat. If somebody says to you, I need to do something to build up my immunity to the possibility of these more serious illnesses, how do you tell them to start?
That's a good question. I mean, obviously, a multivitamin is a quick, easy way. But, one of the things that I found to be helpful for myself is that you don't need a big fancy gym to start doing exercise, gym membership, things like that. Just even things as your smartphone, or a smartphone tracks our steps. And so one thing that I did was I just tried to challenge myself with a goal every day. 50 this day, then let's try to do 50 more and 100 instead of, walking, not taking the step, or not taking the elevator, taking the steps instead. Right. Little things, just start little things, and then, adding one piece of fruit daily, or, cutting out soda, cutting out a little bit of alcohol.
If there was one step you've taken overall yourself and one that you would advise your patients, because this sounds like a whole philosophy, but what is one message you would like to get out to people who are watching at home?
I definitely think exercise. Exercise is good for endorphins. It's good for metabolism. It's good for stress level. It's good for mood.
And if I'm sedentary right now and I say exercise, I don't do exercise. There is a way to start. How would you tell someone to start? You mentioned steps. Yeah. That is a way right there.
Simply walking. Yeah, just, walking the dog, walking to the mailbox, not doing the elevator, going to the mall, especially this time of year. It's either too hot or too cold. The mall is always the right temperature, so you can always just go and walk somewhere.
And that's the doctor saying that, so it's got to be right. And I have about 30 seconds left. Stress level, you mentioned it very quickly. Stress, very important in trying to fight off disease. Yeah. What's the first step to take to try to lower our stress level? Besides exercise, because I know it's part of it.
Yeah, I think work-life balance is really important. Make sure you have something outside of your job. I know work can be extremely stressful, but make sure you have a hobby, something that makes you happy, something that you get up in the morning for other than other things.
Health is a philosophy too. Dr. Casey Cohen, thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for going on the record.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. So thank you for making us part of your morning. As always, we encourage you to be part of our discussion each and every Sunday right here at 10 a.m. Until then, you can watch This Morning's On the Record and every episode on our website, WPBF.com, and our free WPBF 25 News app. Matter of Fact with Soledad O'Brien is next. We wish you all a Happy New Year. See you again next Sunday.